Welcome back to Insights. This morning we're discussing the Thunder Bay International Film Festival, and I'm joined by Stephanie Gondula. She's a maritime archaeologist at the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary and also a climate change interpreter. So we're talking about some of the films that are going to be shown at this festival, and a lot of them have to do with the idea of ice. So why is that?
So that's a great question. So we even added another evening to showcase these films that are focused on our polar regions, primarily the North Pole. And if you look in the news, and a lot of these documentaries are really focusing on these polar regions, and there's a number of reasons for that. It's in the news lately because of the ice caps are melting. The scientists have been researching this for many, many years, and ice caps are indeed melting. And there's so many different effects of that to the ecosystems, to the people, that's why ice is really a focus. Our Thursday night programs have a number of films based just on the North Pole, and they're beautiful films with barren, striking landscapes, but they are addressing serious issues.
And so, like you said, this has been in the news a lot lately, this climate change's effect on the polar ice caps. Mm-hmm. So what exactly is happening when you say the ice caps are melting?
That's a great question. We have all these, sound bites out there, but it's tough sometimes to really get an understanding of, well, what does that mean? How do we even know these things? And that's one of the reasons I think Film Festival is a great resource, because it's a place to learn these things. I mean, just getting to watch all these movies to put on the festival, I get to learn these things myself. So back to your question, the polar ice caps are indeed melting. We have melting sea ice, and we also have ice melting on land. And what is happening, the trend has been, the long-term trends have been an upward climb in global temperatures, both ocean temperatures and air surface temperatures. And what that has done is decrease the surface area of these ice caps. And it's sort of a cycle then, as anything in nature, when you decrease this surface area, so it's highly reflective, the ice caps are white, highly reflective, so the sun's rays are being reflected back rather than being absorbed. Once you have less and less ice, there's more heat being absorbed into the waters. And what that does then is affect the food chain, because you have more photosynthesis because of all the life being, in the waters, and that affects the food chain from the very bottom up. And then you also have changes in atmospheric and ocean currents around the world.
So with the increase in temperatures, that's actually warming the water temperature and melting ice, which is creating more water. So if there's excess of water, what actually happens to the oceans?
That's a great question. And let me back up a little bit to sort of explain how it's really getting warmer. Yeah. The way the world runs today is, power. There's electricity. If you look at one of our Science on a Sphere global images, and you can see the lights around the globe, you really get an idea of that there's lights everywhere. We all use electricity. And when we use electricity, it's primarily fueled by burning fossil fuels. And when we burn fossil fuels, we emit carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And this isn't your regular carbon dioxide that is a natural part of our life systems, plants putting out carbon dioxide. This is what they call rampant, or a really excessive amount of carbon dioxide. So that gets released into the atmosphere, and it really creates like a like a heat trapping blanket. And so the heat is trapped, and so it just begets more heat and creates more heat. And so that's where we see these increase in temperatures, melting sea ice. And then what happens, the results or the effects are just across the board. The people that are living in the North Pole are seeing effects, right in front of them. The places that they used to snowmobile to hunt or sled dog to hunt are now much more dangerous to traverse. The animals are seeing the effects as well. Polar bears, for example, who use the ice to hunt, in fact, one of their main prey, the ringed seal, they live and dwell under the ice, and so the bears now have to travel a much further distance to find the ice, to find their prey, which results in less survival for the bears.
So obviously a negative effect at people living in the North Pole, but here at the 45th parallel, right, so not quite there, how does that have an effect on us, or why should we living here care about it?
That's a great question. It does seem pretty remote, the North Pole, very far away. But I think what the way we communicate today really demonstrates how interconnected we all are. If you look at Facebook, for example, look at how we're connected around the planet. So everything is connected. And one of the, I'd say, the most direct results that affects the whole planet, that affects us here in Alpena, here in the Great Lakes, is rising sea levels. No, we're not next to an ocean or next to a coast, but with that interconnectedness, it definitely affects us. A lot of the transportation networks that we rely upon here to get the goods that we use here are based on the coast. And sea level rise has, which is, one of the main results of these ice caps melting and of climate change, is really affecting dramatically these coastal regions. Baltimore is a great example. By 2050, they think that, or the scientists believe that it's going to be 2 feet higher sea level than it is right now.
And so this is a lot of obviously negative stuff that's happening as a result of climate change. What can people do so maybe help reverse its course or help out in any way?
And that's another great thing about the film festival, I think, is that it gives people ideas. So, I mean, it does seem overwhelming. The ice caps are melting. That seems, how do we do something about that? And what's exciting is these films and people around the world they show that communities are getting together to do things such as support energy that's not based on fossil fuels. So what you can do is, it's really, we're beyond now doing let's bike to work, which is still a wonderful, great thing to do. But we now need to do the community level solutions, such as supporting public transportation initiatives. So, write your representative and say, I really support the local trolley, for example. That's a great thing that people can do. And there is hope. There are people doing things right now that can, for sure, lessen our reliance on fossil fuels and hopefully turn the tide back.
And moving back to the topic of the film festival itself, besides, beautiful films and great imagery and stuff like that, why do you think people should come down and watch these films about climate change?
Well, oh gosh, I've got so many reasons. I could go on and on. I think you could come just for the pure enjoyment. So many of these films are just absolutely beautiful and are showcasing places around the world, many I had never even heard of, certainly I hadn't been to. And so you can see some beautiful animals, some beautiful scenery, some beautiful landscapes and seascapes. You can also learn. So while you're enjoying these films, you can definitely learn about these issues. And even though climate change is really touched on in most of the films because it really affects everything in our lives, there are many, many different subjects. One of my favorites is about a little girl who was faced with some physical challenges, who really wanted to learn to surf. She's like 7 years old or something. And this film explores how she became a great surfer. And there's also inspiration for the filmmaking process itself. I think a lot of students in our community, with the access we have to technology today, students are out there interested in becoming filmmakers, and they can come and meet with filmmakers, learn about the process, be inspired by people actually working in the field. It's also just a fun thing to do. Go hang out, have some hors d'oeuvres, sip some wine at the evening events, and watch some movies that you're really not going to see anywhere else.
Some great stuff, Stephanie. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
And don't go anywhere, because we have more insights coming up after the break.